Can you trust eBay sold listings? I don't know anymore. I had to dig through a lot of mess to get the top 10 comic book sales on eBay for August 2023. Up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, panelologists. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics. Welcome you to another video. And before you get started and get comfortable watching the video, please join us. Also, like, comment, subscribe. It does great things for the algorithm. Follow us on other socials, on Instagram, Bronzeville_comics, on Whatnot, Bronzeville_comics. There is a link in the description of this video. You can sign on for Whatnot and get $10 off your first purchase. You will also can use the link in the description of this video to find my eBay store as well as my email. So we're going to take a look at the top 10 eBay sales, and boy, have I had some difficulty digging through the noise on eBay sold listings. Because generally speaking, if you go into eBay and you go under completed items, sold items, you'll see a lot of stuff appearing in green and indicating that it's sold. Now, it used to be if a best offer was accepted, let's say the book was offered for $200, somebody paid $150 for it, you'd see 200 with a horizontal line through the 200. You don't see that anymore. But usually you would still see that if you clicked on the individual listing. Most of the times you're not seeing that either, and it's a little difficult to discern if something's sold or is just relisted by the seller. Now, there is a free website, 130point.com, and you can type something into there and it'll show you eBay sold listings, and it shows you the price paid when the best offer is accepted. Now, if something went to auction, you can trust those values. But sometimes, and I'm not sure what the benefit is. A lot of people mention in the comments that it's money laundering. I don't know how you money launder by buying something on eBay. Selling something, I guess one, could pay cash for items and then, sell them on eBay. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about how to start a criminal enterprise. Anyway, let's dig into these top 10 sales. Before we get started, I want to talk about a couple of sales that popped up really high and really weren't real. One was an old friend, Amazing Fantasy 15, which had a listed sale of CGC 6.0 white pager, and it didn't even list in the description what the CGC grade was on it. It just said something like Amazing Fantasy 15, rare white pages or something like that for $129,000. Now, 6.0 for $129,000 is insane because the record price in 2021 was $96,000. A 6.0 is what, maybe going to be about $50,000, I think. And when I clicked on, it said it was a completed listing, clicked on one of two available. You have two 6.0 white pages of Amazing Fantasy 15? Well, good for you. So there was something really fishy about that. I could not find that as a verified sale. And then there was a really bizarre one. It was an Italian version of the Phantom. I think it was Italian. L'Uomo Mascherato. And on the cover, you can see there's a female version of the Phantom, La Donna Mascherato. The Masked Woman, or maybe the Masked Phantom. It was listed as a sale for $999,000. But it was offered again by the same buyer for the same price, a buyer who's sold 28 items in their eBay history. And I don't understand at all the benefit of listing some random Italian Phantom book for $1 million. I don't understand it. It doesn't, like, it's worth, I mean, maybe something like that on its best day would be worth, maybe $100. I mean, like, I don't see this book being really worth much of anything. So it popped up on my list. It's like they marked it as very rare, hard to find. Yeah, and it's rare and hard to find because nobody wants it. Listen, there are Phantom fans out there, and if you are a fan of the Phantom, and especially a fan of the Phantom Italian language edition, I apologize, but at best there's one of you watching this video. And even so, you're probably not going to spend $1 million to get that comic book, because why would you? I don't understand the listing something for that ridiculous a price, but I don't understand it at all. So let's dive into the top 10 list. Coming in at number 10. Oh, here's a surprise. Amazing Fantasy 15. This was a raw, restored book that went up for auction, and after 51 bids, sold for $15,712. Now, it looks pretty nice, and the restoration does not include trimming. The restoration included, let me find it, color touch, pieces added to cover, reinforced, spine splits sealed, tear seals to cover, staples replaced, cover cleaned, and reglossed. So it says no trimmed edges, no pages added or married. Comic book is complete. I don't know what kind of condition it would have been in prior, but it almost seems a shame to, go to that length to get a restored grade on the book. It's hard to determine. I mean, even so, it's interesting. Like, the back cover has a big crease in it that, it's not been pressed. It hasn't really been, like, it wasn't deep cleaned. So I'm not sure exactly what they did to the staples are replaced. They're not that well replaced. It doesn't look like the best restoration job. Now, a restored 6.0's last sale was for $19,802. That was back in March. So this is about $4,000 less than that. And I guess it is a well-presenting copy of Amazing Fantasy 15, but boy, I would be nervous to get that big a grail and pay that much money online for a book that is restored. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you, spend money? 6.0, what, you could probably get a decent presenting graded book for $15,000. Lower grade, obviously. Let's go to number 9, and this is from Down Under. It is an X-Men 6.0. I'm sorry, an X-Men number 1 in a CG 6.0 that sold for the equivalent. It was a sale in Australian dollars, but it sold for the equivalent of about $15,936 American. That seems like a pretty good sale, a pretty good price to get. The last sale on an X-Men number 1 in a 6.0 was in February for just over $20,000, and this is actually I think a pretty decent price for the book. It's coming from Australia, but I don't think that really is that much of a deterrent. So I think that was a pretty good deal for that book. It's probably got a fair market value of probably about $18,000, so maybe a $2,000 difference. And it points out the difference between auctions and buy it nows, generally speaking, because the market is dipping right now as opposed to 2 years ago when the market was rising. 2 years ago when the market was going up, you wanted to put stuff up for auction because people were going to outbid each other to get the book. You're catching it on the way up. Now you're catching it on the way down. Generally speaking, when you look at multiple books sold recently, like on Go Collect or something, the buy it nows are paying more than the auctions. Let's go to number 8, and this is a copy of Tales of Suspense, number 39, the first appearance of Iron Man in a CGC 6.5. It went for auction, and after 42 bids, it sold for $15,988. Pretty good deal. Again, auction versus buy it now. The last 3 sales of Tales of Suspense 39 in a 6.5 were for $18,500, $16,500, and $18,600. So this is below all of them, solidly below the average. This book continues to do well in the market, even though it's unlikely that we're going to get much Iron Man going forward in the MCU. But I think Robert Downey Jr.'s run as Iron Man in the movies just kind of propelled this book to the next level, where now there are enough people in the collecting community that want the book, that it has become one of the big Silver Age keys, joining, and not necessarily in the same stratosphere, but you're basically looking at those first appearances: the X-Men 1, the Amazing Fantasy 15, Fantastic Four 1, Daredevil 1, Journey into Mystery 83, Hulk 1. I think Tales of Suspense 39 is in that conversation. It's a little bit later than most of those, but I think Iron Man has moved into that level of collectible. Let's move on to number 7 on the list. And number 7 is a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 300, the first appearance of Venom in a CGC 9.8 signature series signed by Stan Lee, Todd McFarlane, John Romita Sr., and David Michelinie. It was offered for $25,000. A best offer on it was accepted, and I got this information from the 130point.com. The best offer was accepted of $17,500 for this book. A pretty good price. Stan Lee signatures, there aren't going to be any more of them to get this book in a 9.8 with these signatures. Kind of the Romita and Michelinie are throw-ons. It's the Lee and McFarlane. Lee and McFarlane book sold for $25,000 in June. A signature series just with those two guys. So $17,500, a pretty good price. And it just shows you even books that you're not paying tens of thousands of dollars for, but it's worth floating an offer out to a seller. The worst they can say is no. Here, somebody took $7,500 off the $25,000 asking price. So usually people, sellers will list something. If they're willing to sit on it, they'll sell it for more than it's worth. If somebody swoops in and really wants it, great. And if somebody gives them an offer that makes sense to them, then they might take it. So let's jump into a repeat book on this list, and that's X-Men number 1, the first appearance of the X-Men and Magneto, etc. CBCS 6.5 sold for $18,100. Now, it's interesting that the CBCS 6.5 sold for a little more than $2,000 more than the CGC 6.0. I just think that goes to show what good a deal that 6.0 was. There was a sale in June on Heritage of a 6.5 CGC for $18,000. However, that cover was quite faded. And I think for me as a collector, that's the kind of book I would steer clear from, especially if you're looking into now solid mid grades. I would go down maybe a couple of grades to get a better presenting, something where the colors look better. And you can be discerning if it's faded. There's a saying, don't buy the grade, buy the book. Look at the book, see if it's what you want, if you're willing to pay, especially when you're talking about mid-grade Silver Age keys like this. The last two sales before that, this was $18,100, were $22,800 and $23,400. Those were both sales from earlier this year. So the X-Men book continues to be a little bit soft in the market right now. I don't think we're getting full-blown X-Men in the Deadpool movie. And let's face it, we're not getting any new movies for quite a while. Still no movement in the writers and actors strikes. So I think this is a perennial key, and it's a great book to have. And since I think this is a good deal, even though it's a CBCS, if you could cross it over and even get a 6.0 CGC, maybe even a 5.5, well worth it. You do have to pay for the grading fees as well. And that is, sometimes the story is, can you do something with this to do a crack, press, resubmit in some shape or form. Let's look at number 5 on the list. And this is a copy of Fantastic Four number 48, the first appearance of Silver Surfer, the first cameo appearance of Galactus in a CGC 9.4 Rocky Mountain pedigree copy that sold for $19,000. This is a book that FF48 went real high during the boom and has come down. Haven't heard anything about Silver Surfer since then. It's one of those things in terms of speculation, characters that people are anticipating and kind of hoarding. And as we're not hearing news, the prices are dropping. The last sale of this, so this sold for $19,000. The last sale in June was for $13,800. There was another $18,000 plus sale this year. The high on this book was $31,200, so it has lost a considerable amount of value. It probably helps that this is a pedigree, and again, we talk about crack, press, and resubmit CPR. This is a pedigree that does not have the yellow, the black and gold label, so it could be not that it's going to increase the value a lot, but it'll increase the presentation. I wonder if the buyer is considering resubmitting this book, hoping to get the same grade. You don't want to get a grade drop when you're talking about a 9.4 of a huge Silver Age key, but hoping to get that pedigree label just because that is something that collectors really like. Let's look to number 4 on the list. We're going back to the Golden Age, and it's Captain America Comics number 3. Early appearance of Captain America, and also there's a text story, which is Stan Lee's first published work in comic books. This, in a CGC 5.5 restored, sold for $26,000. The restoration includes, at least according to the notes on the label, that the spine is split and the cover's reinforced. I'm wondering, again, we talk about CPR, if this is something the buyer could get a conserved grade for. A conservator could possibly take this book out, maybe even improve, get a little bit of a grade bump, but improve, get rid of that purple label and get the blue label with the gray stripe for a professionally conserved copy as opposed to a restored copy. Interestingly enough, the same copy last year, the same exact copy of the book sold for $16,100. So a $10,000 increase in the last year is very unusual considering the comic boom of 2022. Let's look at number 3 on the list, and this is an interesting one. It is the Max number 1/2 Blue Foil Edition CGC 9.8 that sold, at least it looks like it sold, for $35,200. Now, supposedly there are only 10 of these created. Most of them were purple foil, but I guess there was a special blue foil. This seems like a lot of money to pay for a Max book. The most recent sale of one of these blue foils in a 9.8 was back in 2017 for $1,900. So you're talking about almost like 20 times the value now. Let me know in the comments below, do you think this sale is for real? It looks like it's, something that exists to me. Let me just double check. Max Blue Foil CGC 9.8. Yeah, it was confirmed. I'm sorry, I'm not going to reorder my entire list, but this did sell. It was listed for $35,200. It did sell for $17,000, which is still a huge increase over the last 6 years. Test print, only 10 were printed according to the eBay listing, so that actually would drop down to like number 7 on the list. Anyway, it would still be in the top 10. I apologize. Let's move on. Number 2, Amazing Fantasy 15. CGC 4.5. A $50,000 listing had a best offer accepted at $45,000. I think this was a good. If I were the seller, I'd be happy with the last three sales of a 4.5 were 40,800, 46,000, and 43,200. So a little bit above the average at 45,000. And again, best offer was accepted for 10% less than what it was listed for. Seems like it was a motivated buyer. Could have been some back and forth on that. And again, according to 130point.com, that the $45,000 was the final price paid on this copy of the first appearance of Spider-Man. Let's look at number one on the list, and it is a pre-code horror book, Startling Terror Tales number 11, CGC 8.0 and LB Cole cover, sold for $62,500. That was the top eBay sale for the month of August. The listing was for $75,000. Best offer accepted of $62,500. So the collector that bought this was able to get $12,500 off the asking price. The last sale of this book was a decade ago, in 2013, for $1,972. It has increased, more than 30-fold in value in a decade. And I think what it is this: there has been an explosion in pre-code horror interest over the last decade through the comic boom, as people are exploring this particular segment of the hobby. Earlier this year, a 6.5 sold for $33,350. So another grade point and a half higher is almost double. Hard to find this book. I don't know what the census is. Let's look at that. Resources, census, start. Come on. Startling Terror Tales 11. This is from Star Publications. 9.2 is the highest graded copy. There are two of those. There are only 99 universal copies on the census, only 11 more restored. And at an 8.0, there are 5 of them, and there are only 8 copies better than that. So, especially for LB Cole collectors, one of those most desired artists in the pre-code horror genre, collectors are getting aggressive for these books. So anyway, that's it for this list. Let me know what you think. Obviously, most of us cannot afford any of these books. They did come a little bit cheaper. One note, a YouTuber that I follow, Liberty Hill Comics, with Dr. Paul, who does a lot of work on conservation of comic books. An interesting channel to check out. He's a new channel, just approaching 1,000 subscribers. A book that he had highlighted buying on his channel just missed the list. It was like number 11, and that was All-Star Comics number 3 in a CBCS 9.0 restored. Just missed making the list. It was just under $15,000, that sale. So, there are some people that can afford these books, and good for them. Again, let me know what you think. I had to sift through quite a few sales that either went much lower than what they were listed for, including a Bry's Comics Amazing Spider-Man 26 in a CGC 9.9, the Virgin variant, that did sell for, I think it was about $7,000 in like a $15,000 asking. So anyway, let me know what you think of the comics on this list in the comments below. Always appreciate the feedback. In the meantime, you can take a look at a couple of my other videos here. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.